She fed a poor, disabled old lady beggar every day. Until she said, "I'm a billionaire," she thought she was just an old, disabled, homeless woman. She brought her food every single day, no matter how little she had. But one morning, the old lady looked her in the eyes and said something that changed everything. Who was she really? Why did she choose her? And what secret had this quiet, broken woman been hiding all along? Sit back and listen. Because this story isn't just shocking, it's going to grab your heart and make you see life differently. This is the story of a young woman named Jessica and a crippled old beggar everyone ignored. Jessica was only 27 years old. She worked part-time at a diner in a quiet corner of Austin, Texas. Her life wasn't perfect, far from it. She lived alone in a studio apartment with a leaky faucet and a fridge that made weird noises at night. Most weeks she could barely afford groceries after paying rent, but every afternoon, without fail, she stopped by the park bench on Sycamore Street. That's where the old lady sat, her legs wrapped in layers of old towels, her back hunched from years of struggle. She didn't talk much, didn't even ask for food. She just sat there quietly, clutching a faded blue scarf and a worn-out tin cup by her feet. Most people walked past without a glance. Some kids even made fun of her. "She smells weird," one of them once whispered. Jessica heard them. She always did. But she never laughed. Never turned away. That Wednesday afternoon, Jessica walked up with a foil-wrapped sandwich from the diner. She placed it in the woman's lap with a soft voice. "It's turkey and cheese today. I hope that's okay." The old lady's hands trembled as she took it. She looked up and said something Jessica would never forget. A whisper, like a secret, meant only for her. "You've done enough, child. More than you know." Jessica didn't understand. She just smiled. "I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" But tomorrow came, and the woman said something she never expected. 4 words that froze Jessica in her tracks. "I'm not who you think." What? Did that mean? Who was she? Why had she been watching Jessica all this time? Stay with me, because what happened next, no one saw coming. Jessica wasn't a rich woman. She wasn't famous or powerful or someone who got noticed, but she had something rare. Kindness that didn't ask for anything in return. At 27, she'd already learned that life could be unfair. Her father left when she was 10. Her mother worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford to send her to college. Jessica now worked at Mel's Diner on the corner of 8th and Willow. It wasn't much. Cracked leather booths, clinking coffee cups, and tips that barely filled a jar, but Jessica showed up every day with a smile, tying her apron tight like it was armor. She served pancakes and coffee to strangers, even when her feet ached and her heart felt empty. She dreamed of becoming a nurse someday, but those dreams were buried under bills and reality. Most evenings, after her shift ended at 4 p.m., she'd walk 2 blocks to the park. There, under a rusted street lamp near the playground, sat the old woman, always in the same spot. Same green coat with the missing buttons, same woolen hat pulled low over her forehead. Her wheelchair looked like it belonged in a junkyard. One wheel crooked, the metal scratched and dented. No one knew her name. Kids called her Witch Hazel behind her back. Adults pretended not to see her at all, but not Jessica. Jessica called her Miss Edith. Because once, when Jessica offered her a sandwich, the old woman whispered, "That was my sister's name." So Jessica made it hers. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand answers. She just showed up, with a sandwich, a thermos of hot tea, or a cookie when she had extra. Sometimes they didn't speak. Sometimes Jessica just sat next to her in silence, watching the leaves fall from the trees. Miss Edith was always quiet. Her hands were thin and shaky. her voice raspy like it had been forgotten. She never begged. She never complained. She just existed. But Jessica noticed things. The way Miss Edith's eyes scanned the playground when children laughed. The way her fingers traced the same worn corner of her scarf when the wind blew. And once, just once, Jessica saw her mouth a name under her breath. A name she didn't recognize. There was more to Miss Edith than the world saw, and Jessica felt it, even if she couldn't explain why. Every time she walked away, Jessica had this feeling, like the old woman was watching her longer than she should, like Miss Edith was waiting for something, but Jessica didn't know what. Not yet. Jessica's visits became part of her life. Like clockwork, she would finish her shift, untie her apron, grab whatever leftovers Mel let her take, and walk to the same bench under the same rusted lamp. Sometimes it was a half-eaten club sandwich, sometimes a slice of pecan pie. One time she brought a bowl of stew she made from scratch at home, wrapped in foil to keep it warm. Miss Edith was always there, waiting, never asking, never expecting. But when Jessica arrived, her tired eyes would light up just a little, like someone had finally remembered she still existed. They didn't speak much at first. Jessica would sit on the other end of the bench, share a soft, "Hi," and hand her the food. Miss Edith would give a quiet nod, sometimes a raspy, "Thank you," and eat in slow silence. But as days turned into weeks, words began to pass between them. One day Jessica said, "You like peaches?" Miss Edith looked up from her sandwich, a faint smile tugging at her cracked lips. "My husband used to bring me peach pie, said it was the only good thing I ever baked." Jessica chuckled. "That's funny. My mom used to burn the crust every time." Miss Edith laughed, a low, creaky sound like a door that hadn't been opened in years. It was the first time Jessica had ever heard it. After that, the silence changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It became comfort. Some days, Jessica would read, aloud from a paperback she kept in her purse. Other times, she'd talk about her life, how she wanted to save enough to go back to nursing school, how her cat knocked over her lamp last night, how Mel at the diner kept forgetting her name even. After 2 years, Miss Edith would just listen. Head tilted slightly, eyes focused, like every word mattered, and sometimes she would share a fragment of her past. One night she said, "I used to be a teacher, 2nd grade. They called me Miss Emmy back then." Jessica blinked. "Really? I loved my 2nd grade teacher. She let me keep a goldfish at my desk." Miss Edith nodded slowly. "I had one too. His name was Blue." Little pieces like that, bits of her old life, slipped out like loose threads. Jessica never pushed. She just let them come, like gathering puzzle pieces in the dark, unsure what the final picture would be. And even when Jessica had nothing to give, no food, no stories, she still came. She just sat beside Miss Edith, even on cold evenings when the wind stung their faces. She'd bring a second scarf, wrap it around the old woman's neck. "Too thin for winter," she'd whisper, and Miss Edith would nod, her eyes soft. People started to notice. Some gave Jessica strange looks. Others whispered things like, "She's wasting her time on that old ghost," but she didn't care. This woman, this quiet, forgotten soul, meant something to her now. She couldn't explain it, not even to herself. It wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was connection. A silent, sacred kind that didn't need reasons. One day. Jessica was late. Her shift ran long. The diner slammed with a sudden rush. She ran the last block, breathless, heart pounding. When she reached the bench, Miss Edith was still there, still waiting, still watching. Jessica dropped beside her. Pulled out a paper bag. Sorry I'm late. Mel gave me meatloaf today. Can you believe that? Miss Edith didn't answer right away. She just reached out and placed her frail, bony hand over Jessica's. Jessica froze. It was the first time Miss Edith had touched her. Then softly, the old woman said, I wait for you, you know. Every day. You bring the light with you. Jessica felt something rise in her chest, a swell she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It was something deeper, something unspoken. And from that day on, Jessica never missed a single evening, no matter the weather, no matter the hour, because somewhere in her heart, she knew something was changing. She just didn't know what. It happened on a Tuesday. Jessica remembered the sky was oddly gray that evening, even though the forecast had promised sun. She left the diner 10 minutes early. Mel didn't even notice. She clutched a brown bag with warm cornbread and 2 leftover biscuits tucked inside. As she walked, she hummed an old country tune Miss Edith had mentioned once, something about Mississippi roads and broken hearts. But when she turned the corner onto 5th and Maple, the bench was empty. For the first time in almost 2 months, Miss Edith wasn't there. Jessica froze mid-step. She scanned the sidewalk, the nearby bushes, even peeked into the alley behind the bench. Nothing. No sign of her. Maybe she was late, Jessica told herself. Maybe she'd gone to the corner store, though Miss Edith had never done that before. Maybe something happened. She sat down anyway, opened the bag, and waited. An hour passed. The cornbread grew cold. The next day, Jessica came again. Same time, same place. Still no Miss Edith. By Friday, her stomach began to twist. She asked a shopkeeper nearby, "Have you seen the older woman who used to sit here every night?" The man frowned. "Who? The one in that beat-up green coat?" Jessica nodded. He shrugged. "Ain't seen her in days. Maybe she moved on. You know how street folks are. One day here, next day gone." But Jessica couldn't let it go. She searched the block, checked the shelter 2 streets over. No one matching the description. She even asked a city worker trimming the hedges. Nothing. By Sunday, something strange happened. Jessica returned to the bench after her shift, just out of habit. But as she approached, she noticed something resting on the seat. A small envelope, cream-colored, folded neatly, as if it had been placed with care. She picked it up. Her name was written on the front. Jessica. In the most delicate cursive she'd ever seen. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and a key taped to the corner. The note read, "You were kind when no one else looked my way. You never asked for anything and yet gave everything you had. The world may have seen me as a shadow, but you treated me like I still mattered." Go to 128 Rosemont Avenue. Use the key. Trust your heart. Jessica stared at the words, stunned. She had never told Miss Edith her last name, never given her any details about where she lived, let alone her schedule. And yet, here was her name, her handwriting, and something that felt like a door opening in the middle of a locked life. A Rosemont Avenue? She didn't even know where that was. But something inside her stirred, not fear, not doubt. It was a pull, a knowing. Miss Edith hadn't just vanished. She had left a trail, and Jessica was going to follow it, even if it meant finding out. The woman she thought she knew had been hiding something all along. Jessica's heart pounded as she reached the iron gate of 128 Rosemont Avenue. It was nothing like she imagined, not an abandoned shack, not a run-down duplex. It was a two-story colonial house with white shutters, a porch swing, and a freshly swept walkway. There were flower beds trimmed with care and a wind chime swaying in the breeze. It looked lived in, loved, kept. She checked the address again. This was it. Hand trembling, she took the old brass key from her pocket and stepped up to the front door. Her breath caught as she slid it into the lock. It turned with ease. The door creaked open, revealing a cozy, warm space. Wooden floors, soft lamps, polished furniture. Everything smelled faintly of vanilla and lemon oil. Pictures hung neatly on the walls. A fire crackled in the hearth. And then, from a side room, came a voice, smooth, clear, and unmistakably familiar. "I hoped you'd come." Jessica turned fast, her heart leaping. There, standing straight, with not a trace of fragility, was Miss Edith. But it wasn't the hunched, tired woman from the park. This woman was radiant. Her silver hair was brushed and curled. She wore a navy pantsuit, a string of pearls, and a knowing smile. No layers of rags, no limp, just presence, poise. Jessica blinked. I don't understand." "How are you?" Miss Edith walked forward, graceful and sure-footed. She reached out and took Jessica's hand. "I never needed food, darling. Not really. I needed to see if people like you still existed." Jessica pulled back slightly. "What does that mean? You were hungry. You sat there every night." Edith nodded gently. "I sat there because I chose to, because it was the only way I could see the truth with my own eyes." She turned and gestured to a photo on the mantel. Jessica stepped closer. It showed Miss Edith, 10 years younger, shaking hands with the mayor. The plaque below read, "Philanthropist of the Year, Edith L. Winston." Jessica's breath hitched. You're that Edith Winston," she whispered. "You're the billionaire who gave away half her company?" Miss Edith gave a humble smile. "I used to be, but after the press faded, I wondered, did any of it matter? Did all that giving truly reach hearts or just wallets?" She sighed, her eyes shining. "So I went quiet. I sold what I had to, vanished from the circles, and spent the last 5 years living simply, watching, waiting." Jessica sat down, stunned. Miss Edith continued, "I saw hundreds walk past me on that bench. Some gave change out of pity. Some gave food out of guilt. Most gave nothing." Her voice softened. "But you gave without expectation, without knowing, without needing to be seen. And every time I offered to repay you, even with a thank you, you smiled and said no." Jessica swallowed hard. Her voice cracked. "I didn't do it for anything." Miss Edith leaned in. "I know. That's why everything here, this house, what's in it, what's beyond it, it's all for you now." Jessica froze. "What?" Edith nodded. "You'll find the documents upstairs. It's yours. The house, the trust fund, even the diner, now fully paid for. I bought it last week under a different name." Jessica's vision blurred with tears. "You're giving me all this?" she whispered. Edith took her hand. "I'm not giving it to you. You earned it, without even knowing there was something to earn." Jessica crumbled in the chair, sobbing. Not from the weight of what she'd been given, but from the truth. She had changed someone's life with nothing but kindness, and that life had just changed hers in return. The next morning, the sun bathed the little neighborhood in gold, but nothing felt little anymore. Jessica stood in the same worn jeans, now washed, and folded with care. She looked out from the porch of the home she never dreamed she'd own. Birds chirped, and the breeze rustled the American flag by the steps. She wasn't rich yet, at least not in her mind. She was still the same girl who had once handed over the last slice of meatloaf with a laugh and a shrug. But something inside her had shifted. She wasn't struggling to matter anymore. She belonged now to something greater than survival. She belonged to hope. A few days later, Jessica returned to the park, not to sit, to serve. She set up a folding table. On it, warm chili, cornbread, sandwiches, clean bottles of water, and the same smile she had given to Miss Edith day after day. The line grew quickly, full of tired eyes and torn shoes. But this time, they looked at Jessica not as one of them, but as a lifeline. And she offered every plate with steady hands and eyes full of purpose. From across the lawn, Edith watched from her wheelchair, her old disguise now resting quietly beneath a blanket. She saw Jessica hug a mother with a baby strapped to her back. She saw her kneel to tie an old man's shoe. She saw the ripple, how one kind gesture had become a wave, and she smiled. Jessica never shouted her story. She never posted online. She never bragged, but people started whispering about the girl who gave without asking, about the woman who fed the hungry with more than food. She fed them dignity, and slowly others began to help. Retired teacher brought soup. A local cop handed out blankets. A young teen set up a music speaker and played soft guitar. What began with one tired woman and a plate of kindness became a quiet revolution. Jessica used part of the trust Edith left her to reopen the old, shuttered diner where she once worked. She named it the Second Table. On the sign outside, beneath the name, read just 5 words: "Everyone eats." No questions asked. Inside, she hired people no one else would: an ex-veteran with PTSD, a single mom with no diploma, a young man just out of rehab, and day by day, the place filled, not just with hungry mouths, with grateful hearts. Jessica never forgot what Edith said. You earned this because you gave when you had nothing. And now, Jessica had something. Not just a house, not just money. She had meaning, and she gave that away too, plate by plate, smile by smile, because kindness, once sparked, can never be unlit. Some people believe miracles arrive with flashing lights and thunder from the sky. But the truth? Sometimes the biggest miracles walk on aching feet, wear threadbare shoes, and hand you dinner with a smile even when their own stomach growls. Jessica didn't find gold in a lottery ticket. She didn't marry into wealth. She didn't stumble onto some get-rich scheme. She earned her miracle one meal at a time, one act of quiet dignity, one plate of food to a woman the world forgot. And in doing so, she reminded us all of something we often ignore. You don't have to be rich to give. You don't have to be powerful to lift someone up. You just have to be present, to look someone in the eye and say, "You matter. You're not invisible to me." Because the truth is, kindness echoes. It doesn't just change lives, it changes generations. Jessica's story isn't just about a surprise inheritance. It's about how one woman's heart became a refuge, how one choice to care turned into a legacy. So the next time you walk past someone in need, stop and ask yourself, what if I'm their one plate of hope today? What if I'm the one miracle they've been waiting for? Because as Jessica learned, you never truly know who's sitting across from you until they look you in the eyes and say, "I'm a billionaire. And today, I came to thank you." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?